Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 495.
The best of 1997, 20 years ago.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Geoff predicts the robot uprising. We answer questions about playing games hundreds of times and getting all of the things for them, and we have an encouraging tale of amazement. Plus, we cross a new threshold with the Wayback Machine with our top 10 games from 20 years ago. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the K to my J, Tom Vassal.
Oh, I know what he's talking about.
That's the men in. Here come the men in black. I love that movie. That was really fun.
I liked that one. The two follow-ups. The third one was better than the second, but the first one was still the best one. I think about it.
Well, because everything was new.
Yeah, but there's some sequels that are as good or not, if not better, than the original Toy Story. But I think about the Men in Black every time we go to Universal because there's a Men in Black ride there, which is fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's also air-conditioned, which is always helpful.
That is always helpful, yes.
Well, folks, if I'm calculating correctly, is this show airing on Valentine's Day?
Oh, my goodness. Really?
Well, let me count here.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, happy Valentine's Day. And thanks for giving money to Hallmark and to the corporations who tell you that you must buy gifts for your loved ones, even though you should do it other days to surprise them.
My youngest has a bunch of Valentines that have Pokemon stickers on them that say, I Pikachu's you.
Do they make your kids give one to everybody in class?
Yes, of course.
Well, that was not the case when I was a child.
Really?
I mean, I gave one to everyone in class, but I did not get one from everyone in class.
Wow. So you had, like, unhappy Charlie Brown moments?
No, it wasn't that bad.
I got a rock.
No, it wasn't that bad. You know, because there's other people gave them out to everybody. But, yeah, I was like, oh, will the girl I like give me one? Oh. Well, what have you, folks. My name is Tom Vassal.
Hi there, I'm Eric Summerer.
And the reason I was mentioning Valentine's Day is because since today's Valentine's Day, that means tomorrow's the 15th, and that means our contest for episode 500 is pretty much over.
Pretty much.
And that's because Eric and I must now delve into the 500-plus emails that have come in.
Yes.
I think it's closer to 600 emails that have come in. Actually, it's way more than 600, but 600 people, anyhow.
It's a lot.
So we need to go through those. And so give us some time. We got to put that together. Episode 500 is not too far away. 5 episodes, in fact.
Wow.
I know it. And in this episode, this is the first time that we're going back 20 years because we can now.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we always could. But
we hit the button, but then there wasn't a lot there.
Well, more on that later. But yeah. So there's just a lot of cool things going on right now. If you're not part of our Slack chat, that's basically
I'm not.
Well, you should be. Do you know there's over 1,000 people in it now?
Wow.
It's very active. There's the most. They have a code names forum, and there's people constantly playing code names back and forth in there. But there's people. There's a Kickstarter channel talking about that. So if you want to join our Slack channel, you can go. I think there's a link from our website. You can ask in our forums, basically, or you could even email me directly. What have you, and we'll get you in there. It's very simple, very easy to get involved with that. Also, this week, is it this week? No. Yes. No. In 2 weeks. Sorry. Mm-hmm. When I'm doing this future thing, I got to think properly. Okay, so in 2 weeks, we're doing a live marathon, gaming marathon, me, Sam Z, and a bunch of other folks.
Cool.
You were invited.
I know. I'm saying it's cool.
Oh, I thought you were saying, ooh. That we're going to be doing it for 30 hours of gaming. We did it once. We're doing it again because thanks to you all, we had reached one of the stretch goals, and I'm trying to knock some of these stretch goals out as quickly as we can.
There you go.
You know, the biggest stretch goal is moving to a Dice Tower studio, and that is underway.
Wow.
In fact, tomorrow I'm going to the police station. Yay.
The police station?
I got to go get a police report. And I said, why do I have to go to the police station? Can't you guys, just go online and figure this stuff out? But apparently I have to go to the police station, pay $8 for some sort of police report that tells them I've never done anything bad that I know of.
Wow. Cool.
Well, no, it's not cool. It's a waste of my time.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Go visit jail.
While I'm here. Also, I wanted to announce that Arcane Wonders just announced a new game in the Dice Tower Essentials line called Viral. Now, Eric, did you see Viral at BGG-Con?
I did not. I've seen the pictures that just got shared recently, but I didn't really know about it at all until the announcement.
We must have played it when you were gallivanting off.
I like to gallivant.
You do. Gallivant. Anyhow, Viral is an area control game where each person is a virus, and they're trying to basically take over different parts of the body, destroy the parts of the body. However, this body is a very astute body because, it has 4 different viruses attacking it. And so it's producing antibodies that were fighting you off. And, if you get too good, too strong in a certain area, you get wiped out. Of course, you come back. I actually don't know what happens to the human body at the end of the game. I think that they still survive. They're a resilient person, so don't worry. And it's very cartoony, the whole thing.
Sure.
But it's an area control game where you're putting together 2 cards. So, I'll say, I'm going to take this action. I'm going to grow my virus in the brain, and I'm going to do this one here in the stomach. And so you have a card for location and a card for an action. And as the game goes on, you can get better action cards into your hand. And so you'll be able to do cooler things, maybe combine some of the actions. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the theme was certainly very unique, but the game itself is a lot of fun. This will probably be launched at Essen, although they'll be showing it off at Gen Con this year. And finally, as a wrap-up to our intro here, I wanted to make an apology. For last episode, Future Tom jumped in and talked about some... Did you know that, Eric?
I didn't.
Yeah, well, sometimes he shows up.
Because Future Tom comes in the timeline after Future Eric.
That is true.
It's one of the quirks of time travel.
Well, I'm using a different machine. You're still using that original one.
Right, I got the original, you've got the lifeboat.
That's right. So you do? Okay, anyway.
Yes.
Good on you. So anyhow, I talked about 3 new podcasts that joined the Dice Tower Network, and that's very exciting. And 2 of them, Board Game Blitz and Our Turn, I had said, as I was going through the thing, I said, and they're both basically doing the same thing, and I just was rambling on like Tom Bass always does. But I want to clarify. When I said they're doing the same thing, what I meant was that they are both helping and bringing diversity to the hobby. But that does not mean that they are the same podcast. And this is a pretty important distinction to make because they're both podcasts that have female leads to them. And I want there to be more women podcasters. And I don't want to just say, well, one woman podcast is like any other. That defeats the purpose. And so I don't mean that because that would be saying that, there's 2 guys doing a podcast. It's just like every other one. Well, I hope not. I hope there's some differences between them. Mm-hmm. And so I'm actually really excited about both these podcasts. The Our Turn podcast, they're a group of women, and they say they're pulling the chairs from the table and inviting everyone to sit down and join the conversation. And it's a fun social hobby that has conversation and connection between people, and they're breaking that down. And on the other hand, Board Game Blitz has different people on it, these Ambi, Cassidy, and Crystal, and they're basically sitting there, and they're coming from very different backgrounds. One of them is... she says she hates Euro games, but she's willing to give any game a shot if it's with the right group. I know what that feels like. Actually, I don't hate Euro games, but I like the difference in opinions there. And so they're both excellent podcasts, and you should check them both out. And I'm very excited to see where our hobby is headed. And I did not mean to lump this together because I think that is a bad thing for the hobby to do such things. Mm-hmm. And also, it was all Eric's fault.
What? I didn't even know.
Future Eric.
Oh, man. Now I have to do recursive loops?
Well, if you go back in time and shoot your younger self,
Why would I
think
do
you're
that?
okay. I don't know. This time travel stuff never makes sense to me. And yet, every time I see a movie or a book or anything with time travel, I'm hooked.
Indeed.
All right, let's talk about some games. I want to start out here by talking about Kashgar. Now, I don't know if you've played this one, Eric.
I have not.
Yeah, well, probably most people haven't because it's not out in English.
Well, that would explain it.
And considering it's like a deck building game, that's kind of a pain, right?
Right.
But Jason has had it, and he's been screaming about it for a while, and he went and got English cards printed from somewhere. Okay, fantastic.
The black market?
I don't know. It's from Cosmos, actually, and I'm wondering why they're not bringing it to the English market. Now, maybe it's because of the theme. Because the theme is, hey, we're some merchants, and we're trading donkeys and all sorts of, different goods and spice. But the game is not really a deck builder. What it is in front of you, you have 3 rows of cards, and these cards are in order. And on your turn, you pick the top card of any of these 3 rows, and you play it. Once you're done playing that card, you stick it in the back of that row. Now, most of these cards, or not most of them, but many of the cards, you start with a patriarch in each one, and that patriarch allows you to draw 2 cards from a deck and pick one to stick at the back of that row and discard the other. So you're slowly adding more cards to your row, and so you're trying to find the right cards to put in your row. Some cards are worth points for the end of the game. Some cards do actions, but once you use that action, it's discarded and gone forever. Other cards will just give you special things, but the more cards you put in a row, the longer it takes to come to the front. But a patriarch also, when you play it, instead of drawing 2 cards and keeping one, you can just say, I'm turning this patriarch into a matriarch. You flip it over, stick it in the back of the row. That's it. That's all you do. And then when the matriarch comes to the front and you play a matriarch, she allows you to go through the discard pile and choose any card you want. So that's pretty cool, but you have to use the card twice to get to that point. So you have these 3 rows, and you might have one short row that you're cycling through the 2 or 3 cards really quickly. And you might have a long row, but it has a whole lot of neat cards in it. And each player has a board that tracks different resources that they have. And you're trying to get resources because on your turn, some of the cards will let you buy some land or a building or whatever the cards are. It doesn't matter. It's stupid. But you pay certain amounts of resources, and those are worth points. In fact, that's where you get most of your points. So it's kind of a fresh take on the deck building genre because you're building 3 decks that are in front of you. But you can see them, right? They're always going to stay in the same order. There's no shuffling involved. And you're trying to be efficient on how you put the cards in. I do not know if this game will come to America or not. I know that people were asking Cosmos. They didn't think it would sell that much. Who knows? But if you get a chance to play it, I really do recommend it. It's Kashgar. That's Kashgar. Kashgar.
But you'd have to find English pay stubs.
I think I know that the card printing that was done was approved for the person who did it by Cosmos. I know that. That's the extent of my knowledge. Maybe it's on BGG or something. I don't know.
Okay. First up for me is a new one from Mayday Games called Nerdy Inventions. And this looked like a good one to try with the kids. It is a dice rolling, I guess, dice manipulation game. You have a row of inventions, and they have varying costs. They're in a row with numerical values above them. So you've got 1 through 6, and there's 6 cards underneath them. And the costs for these cards may be variable based on what position they're in. So the thing may say you need a value of 1, and it has 2 gear symbols on it. And based on where that is in the row, so if it's under the 3, you now need a 1, a 3, and a 3. The gear represents whatever slot it's in. Yeah, that was a really long explanation for that. So you roll 3 dice at the beginning of your turn, and you're trying to make a combination that can acquire 1 or more of these cards. Some require 2 dice, some require 3. You also, as you acquire these inventions, they give you powers that you can spend during the game. So 1 actually splits one of your dice into 2 dice. So you could take a 5 and turn it into a 2 and a 3. You can reduce or add numbers to your dice. So you've got this puzzle element that, how can I get this card I want? Oh, well, I can manipulate my dice and do these crazy things, and now I can acquire this card, which gets me stuff. And the game continues until either the deck runs out, or there's one invention. There's 2 cards of this invention. It's a blimp. And it's hard to get. You need, I think, 3 dice adding up to 15 or more, so a little tricky to get. And then once you've got that, if you get a triple, 3 of a kind, you can turn those in for points, whatever the value is on those 3 dice. Turn that in for points, and that ends the game, if someone triggers it that way. So you're trekking along, manipulating the dice, and my older son really did enjoy that. He liked, what do I want to do? How can I make my dice do this using the tools I've got? There's a card, a tool card, actually, that lets you exhaust one of your inventions and then add or subtract whatever the level of that invention is from one of your dice. Very useful card, but there's one fewer than the number of players in the game. So the start player starts out without one of these. And when you use it, you give it to the player that doesn't have one right now. So the more you use this particular tool, the more it passes around. It's also worth 1 point at the end of the game if you keep it. You also get points if you get many different inventions, like 7 or more different inventions, triggers some bonus points. Basically, though, you're trying to get the points that are on the cards. Pretty quick, pretty simple. That endgame's a little weird. I mean, the running through the deck is one thing, but the possibility, theoretically, if one of those blimps comes up in turn 1, and you buy it with a really lucky die roll, and then on your second turn, you could theoretically end the game after turn 2. And I'm sure that's rare. It doesn't happen a lot, but the possibility just sort of makes it seem weird. I almost wish there were more cards in the deck to do more cool things, play with your dice even more. But I did enjoy it. It pushes those nice buttons, the manipulation, puzzly buttons. I liked it. I'm just confused by the possibility of a really quick end to the game. It's nerdy inventions, still thumbs up. I need to play it some more.
I don't know if I like that name.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because they don't seem to be that nerdy. It's stuff like a blimp and an alarm clock and binoculars. They're not.
Are we calling the people who invented those nerds?
Yes. Yes, we are.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about a game. I think Eric talked about this either last week or the week before. I think it was last week. Ave Roma.
Uh-huh.
Now, when Eric explained this, hands up, did anyone know what he was talking about? I agree. All right.
I agree. It was confusing.
However, I've learned that that's because it really is kind of hard to explain this game. It's really just a mishmash of components thrown into the thing. And in the box I got, I don't know if Eric got it, there came 5 mini expansions for this.
Yes, we didn't even touch those.
Yeah, I was like, what? Are you guys kidding me? This game is plenty complex as it is. Although I played it with Jason, I said, yeah, this is kind of edging towards the heavy end. He's like, this isn't heavy at all. I'm like, all right, shut up. The heavy Euro gamers always tend to say, well, this isn't heavy. I'm like, well, what do you consider heavy? Because they tilt everything towards,
right.
18XX is heavy.
18XX is heavy.
Boats, that's kind of medium heavy. I'm like, no, that stuff is heavy. Stuff like people have the shifting scale. So anyway, that's a whole rant for another time. But so I actually like this. Now, if I recall correctly, you were not as thrilled by it.
I enjoyed the mechanisms. I was put off by the usability of the components.
Well, I was put off by the components, but probably not for the same reason you. I hate when a company decides to upgrade their Kickstarter enhanced version game, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the rulebook acts like that didn't happen.
Yes.
Stop doing that, guys. If you're going to upgrade the pieces, then you upgrade the rulebook to show us that these pieces are in the game.
Yes. Yes, it's annoying as heck.
Or if you put Kickstarter cards in the deck, that needs to be explained.
Yes.
I was like, halfway through the game, I was like, all right, that's it, give me the decks. I took all the Kickstarter cards. Fortunately, they were marked with a K.
Yes. Yeah, we ran into one and spent a good 10 minutes looking through the rulebook, trying to figure I don't see this symbol in the rulebook. what is going on? And then saw the K on the card and then had to go look it up online and get the PDF with that particular trio of cards. If you're going to give us the cards, give us the rules to the cards in the box.
Yeah, and even things like they said, put stickers on the discs, which actually were pillars, but anyway, put stickers on them on both sides. And I was like, what stickers on both sides? Because they gave me stickers that were numbers and Roman numerals. Mm-hmm. So was I supposed to put the number on one side? Am I repeating stuff you said last week? Because I did listen.
No, this particular thing I did not complain about, but the stickers were all on the components when I saw it. So yes, the Roman numerals on one side and the Arabic numerals on the other.
Yeah, that's not confusing at all. So that's kind of a gripe that I have with it. And not to mention that as much as I think the game is cool, if you're trying to look at these cards across the table, yeah, have fun with that. Mm-hmm. But all that being said, there's some fascinating stuff in here. I love the idea of the numbered workers meaning something, and that the 1 is pretty much just as useful as the 5.
Yes.
I like that concept, and I also like in this game, at the end of each round, that you kind of are pulling workers off, and you're pulling them in turn order, so you can pull all the workers from one area. So you have a different group of workers. You don't have 1 through 5 each round. And that's kind of a neat aspect to the game. And also you get special abilities. They really threw in the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think this game is probably not going to get a ton of love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that there's too much. This is the kind of game where an editor would be like, all right, boys and girls, let me sit down here. This is where we're going to be using a chainsaw on part of this. Mm-hmm. Because doesn't it feel like there's maybe just a little too much?
Yeah, maybe. There's a lot of moving pieces. Like, you have to go through a lot of steps to do anything in this game.
But are you, even tempted at all to, pull out one of those mini expansions?
Not for a while. Not until I knew this game backward and forward.
Yeah, it's just weird. And but that's fine, but then you shouldn't release it with the game itself. It almost feels like that was thrown in, again, as a Kickstarter thing. And this is one of the areas that I'm not thrilled with Kickstarter. I'm not thrilled that Kickstarter encourages this whole, you gotta have these stretch goals, you gotta have this stuff, and so people will make stuff up and they'll add stuff and then they throw it all in the box. And it's very frustrating to me when I get a box and I don't know what stuff is the Kickstarter stuff, I don't know what stuff is not Kickstarter, I don't know, as a reviewer, I always tell the companies that please send me the most basic version you have, because I want to just show people the game, and I don't have to say, well, here's a piece, but you can't get that.
You can't have this. Yeah. Why am I reviewing it then?
That's just not very useful. Yeah. So it's unfortunate, but I still did like it though. For those people who say I don't like Euro games, I do tend to like worker placements. This game even has sort of a rondel in it, which I liked too. I liked buying cards. I liked the Patreons that you would get. That give you a special ability and upgrade in action. That's neat. So anyway, you can go back and listen to Eric's thing if you want to. Well, you won't learn how to play the game from that. But anyhow.
No.
I was more impressed. I kind of went into it going, I don't think I'm going to like this, but I did. So that's Ave Roma. Eric was kind of right.
Yay. Several weeks ago, I talked about a collection of games from Main Street Games. These were, sort of small box card games designed very much for the mass market, it would seem. And I didn't talk about one that I did enjoy called 8 to 28, and that's 8-28. It's sort of it's a pressure luck blackjack variant. Where you have a hidden card, and then you are dealt a card, and then the numbers on the cards are 1 through 11, but the 11 can also be a 1. And it's basically blackjack with 2 goals. Instead of aiming for 21, you're aiming for either 8 or 28, and you're competing against the other players. So you will continue to take cards, but you're looking around to see what target your opponents are going for as well, which ones you think they're going for. And then when everyone has passed, you reveal and see who's closest to both 8 and 28, and both will earn points. So do you keep pushing it, hoping to go to 28? You don't want to go over, obviously. It's a neat little twist, but, I'm being positive over something somewhat minor. This is a very basic game that I don't know if I would break back out again. I had fun. It offers interesting challenges, and it's probably my favorite of this bunch from Main Street Games. But it was still just a blackjack variant. So middling to thumbs up, I guess, for 8 to 28, which was my favorite of the Main Street card games.
Okay, I'm not sure. You really find some weird stuff. And in this show, you would think that I would be the one bringing the weirder games, but somehow you manage to outdo me on it all the time.
I go to the nooks and crannies, man.
Those nooks and crannies. So I'm going to talk about a slightly obscure game called Arcadia Quest.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Do you know I just had a bad experience with Arcadia Quest, though, because I opened up my box. We were going to play. And it's like, all right, I got these painted miniatures. Let's pull them out. And then I couldn't find the painted miniatures.
Oh.
There was like half of them there. And we're still not sure where the painted miniatures are. So our working theory is that Rob and Sam painted a set of Arcadia Quest and sent it to somebody who won a contest. And in doing so, they may have sent him or her, I don't know who won, all my Arcadia Quest stuff inside this box with it. Because we had played Arcadia Quest live, and we had used my game. And it's been a while since I played it.
Right.
So, fortunately, I was able to still play Arcadia Quest because I have the new Arcadia Quest Inferno, which basically comes with everything you need to play the game. I still have, like, my dice and most of the heroes from the original Arcadia Quest, but I was missing all the monsters. And I wasn't really, like, pumping to play Arcadia Quest Inferno, but I really wanted to play Arcadia Quest Pets. That's a new expansion that works with both of them. So Arcadia Quest Inferno, if you've never played Arcadia Quest, you have a party of 3 different chibi little figures, and you are going on missions to do whatever, usually to kill monsters. But as you kill the monsters, you will also beat up the other people who are playing against you, and that's where the fun of the game is. You have special abilities. You have different weapons that you will be using. You have mission to mission. The game you usually play 5 or 6 missions, and between each mission, you will have a chance to upgrade cards. Each mission takes just a bit over an hour, so you wouldn't play it all through one setting, but you can save where you are from session to session. Our Arcadia Quest Inferno is pretty much the same thing, except if you haven't caught it by now, it has slightly a bit of fire involved with it.
Oh.
Which means it's also full of demons and little harpies and succubuses and things like that. It's actually not my favorite setting, right? I don't mind that the demons, I get to kill them all. That's cool. But it's okay. There's like this new currency called Damnation, which if you can get damnation from using certain weapons and other things, and when you have it, sometimes bad things will happen to you and so forth. You don't want to have the most of it, etc. I could live without that. That theming of, like, I got 3 damnation is not that funny to me, or I don't know. It wreaks havoc with my mind a little bit.
Okay.
The rest of the game is fine. It's, it's the same as Arcadia Quest, and so I like it a lot. But pets, wow, I love pets. Pets, you get a pet with your team. So now you have 3 characters and a pet. And your pet might be a monkey, a dog, a dragon, a cat, if you can't use any of the other pets, a chameleon, what have you. And your pet doesn't actually fight, but goes around with you and gives you bonuses as long as they stick with you. They can even be upgraded and get better. And you can, while they can't attack, you can attack other people's pets. So I may or may not have killed a cat in my life in Arcadia Quest Pets. But there's no glory in it. There should be. So you don't really do it other than that they're kind of annoying to you. Like right now, in the missions that Melody and I are playing, I have a turtle who gives me extra defensive dice, which is great. The pets are also, cute, right? Hey, these little pets. Kids are going to love these, The little chibi figures from Arcadia Quest are kind of cute as it is. This kind of ups the ante for that. And it fits seamlessly both with Arcadia Quest and with Arcadia Quest Inferno. So I highly recommend Arcadia Quest Pets. I also I think most people are going to love Arcadia Quest Inferno because, that's fine. I have to slightly hang up with the theme, but the game itself is still one of my favorite games of all time. Love it,
Cool.
love it. So that's Arcadia Quest Pets and Inferno. Pettin' Inferno. Inferno Pets.
Last for me is a new app from Asmodee Digital. So one of my favorites of the last couple of years, and especially my wife's favorite of the last couple of years, is Potion Explosion, which has very much a similar feel to those gem drop games that are ubiquitous in the iOS and Android sphere. So it's kind of neat that we've come full circle now. There's an app for Potion Explosion. And it, just like many of the other Asmodee releases in the last couple of months, this one looks very, very pretty. It's all animated as you create potions. You're dragging and dropping ingredients from vials into your potions, and as you complete them, they fill up with liquid that sort of sloshes around in bands of color. They really did a nice job to animate everything and really, bring it to life, which is cool. It really does feel like the board game has come to life and is sort of dancing around and sparking and stuff. And of course, it makes it easy to calculate the cascades. Some people that I've introduced Potion Explosion to have trouble understanding what triggers a cascade. It's not that difficult. But this one, very easily, you tap this and they collide and they come to you, and you don't have to mess with the marbles or refeed the feeder. I love doing that, but maybe you don't. And it's a very faithful recreation of the board game version. So far, I've only seen that there's 2 levels of AI to play against. If you're playing solo, you can also do pass and play and add players. There's an online component as well, but there's no single-player quest. One of the things I really like about many of these iOS implementations, digital implementations, is that there's some sort of twist, like a storyline or a quest to work through. This doesn't have that, which is fine. It's not like they advertised that there would be one. It's just I've kind of come to expect that sort of thing when you do a digital implementation. Still, very pretty, very faithful. If you like Potion Explosion or you want to introduce it to someone very inexpensively, well worth a look. Thumbs up, Potion Explosion app.
Hey, folks, if you want to introduce people to drugs, just play this clever little app that will make them play forever. I still think this is kind of hilarious that you're playing an app based on a board game based on an app.
Kind of.
No, definitely. It's not a kind of. It's definitely what it is.
Sure. Kind of.
Hey, before we jump to the rest of our show, Eric, I forgot to mention this. As I was perusing around the world on the internet, I noticed that somebody I know is getting rid of some of their game collection.
Yeah?
What is this?
Well, I'm following up on my my New Year's resolution. I have a list of 160 games that I'm getting rid of. Pretty cool.
All right, just to clarify before we go farther, he is not offering those games to you all who are listening.
I am not. I'm sorry. I do, much like Tom, I offer them to my game group first, especially the review games, because they helped me test them, and so they get first dibs. And then the ones that don't go there, I offer up for $1 in an auction for ConCon, just because shipping is a big old pain. Plus, there's some from my collection that I've purchased that I'm asking a little bit more for.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things involved with getting rid of games. There's the, shipping is just a pain in the neck, period, right? Mm-hmm. And it's also expensive. Then people are like, well, I'll pay for everything, but you still aren't paying for my time to go to the post office, package it up. I just really hate doing that. And then everyone will say, well, what about this charity and stuff? There's a lot of great charities out there, but let us choose that, I guess.
Right.
I'm just trying to head off the amount of emails Eric will get.
No, I get it. And a few people, when I posted about it on Facebook, and like 2 or 3 people were like, all right, where's the list? I'm ready to go. But they're in Texas, North Carolina. It's like, no, I'm not shipping them. It's such a wonderful cathartic feeling to go to ConCon with like a trunk full of stuff and have them hand them all out and then not have to bring all that stuff back home. It's so nice. So I'm looking forward to that. But I'm trying to get ahead of it and make some room and, make some floor space come back.
I want to say something along the lines of 160. That's cute.
I know. How quaint. It still doesn't solve my storage problem. I think that's the biggest issue, is that I've been sorting, here's what I want to keep, here's what I can let go of, and I've made some room on the shelf, and I filled those holes really fast. And now the shelves are full. And I still have all these games over here. So we need to still think about some new solutions. I've got one of those bit boxes the storage solution where you get rid of your game boxes and put all the components in here. I may do that for some games.
Why don't you just get rid of more games?
I could also get rid of more games. There might be a second wave.
Do the Tom Vassal policy. One game in, one game out. It makes my life so much better.
It is, but you have to get to the equilibrium first. You have to get to, I've filled the shelves, and these are all games I want to keep. I keep just hoping that maybe I'll find another set of shelves somewhere I can use.
A bag of holding. I'm okay now. Well, okay, no, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I'm up to, Melody just told me, we're at box number 29. And there's an average of 13 games per box, I think.
Okay. Wow.
There's just so many games. It's crazy. It never stops. So that is what it is. I even got rid of a couple games that I really like, but they just had to make the cut. Mm-hmm. Now people are going to wonder what they are, but we're going to move on.
Moving on.
Let's do it.
Tales of Amazement. I'm in the U.S. military, and as part of an upcoming training event in Europe, our unit brought in experts to brief us on the various aspects of our mission. As we gathered in the classroom for what promised to be a long 2 days of lectures, the group leader began to make introductions for his various team members. Introductions included their qualifications for being on the team, like PhDs and experience, and also a few small personal tidbits. One of the instructors was a gentleman named Hannes from Estonia, and he would be teaching us about his country's history and what we could expect when traveling to the Baltic states. The group leader told us that Hannes was an instructor at the Baltic Defense College and in his spare time enjoyed spending time with his family and playing strategy games. My ears perked up at that last bit, and I filed it away to bring up over lunch or some other free time. When the class broke, I approached Hannes and struck up a conversation. I asked him what type of strategy games he enjoyed, and he said, "You may not have heard of them, but I really enjoy a game called Twilight Struggle. Are you familiar with it?" I answered yes. I was very familiar with it, and I enjoyed strategy games myself. He then asked that key question that all us gamers fear asking, "What games do you play?" I could almost see the gears turning in his head saying, "Please don't say Risk or Monopoly or Exploding Kittens" over and over. I told him that my current favorite was Scythe, but I played everything from Agricola to Power Grid, Blood Rage to Orleans, and The Gallerist to King of Tokyo. His eyes lit up as we both realized we'd found kindred spirits. We ate lunch together and spoke of our gaming groups, he telling me about his group back in Estonia, and I of the vibrant gaming in Colorado Springs. He said that many games were hard to come by in his home country, and he'd brought some extra cash and left some room in his suitcase to try and get to a game store during his travels. Here in Colorado Springs, we're blessed with a multitude of very friendly, very local game stores, and I gave him the addresses with tips on who had the best selection, the best prices, and the best owner. We finished up the day and went our ways, he promising that he was going to do his best to get out that night. After I went home, I thought about how lucky we are in the U.S. to have so many games so readily available at a decent cost. I looked through my collection and saw my copy of Ottoman Sunset, a game I hadn't played in quite some time. It was on my trade list, and it occurred to me that I'd just met the perfect new owner for the game. The next day, I saw Hannes, and he said he'd made it out to 2 of the stores and bought a copy of Evolution Climate, a title he said was unavailable in Estonia. I told him I had one more that I thought he may have trouble tracking down, and presented him my copy of Ottoman Sunset. He was truly floored and thankful as I described the little American company Victory Point games, and showed him the laser-cut pieces and the little napkin that comes with it to wipe off the soot. As a teacher of history, he loved the event cards and how they moved the game along, and as a frequent traveler, he loved the small footprint and solo mechanic. After the classes finished, we did our customary presentation of certificates of appreciation for our visitors. After the short ceremony, Hannes brought his game over to me and asked me to sign it as a memory for his trip to the U.S. I happily signed it and wished him safe travels back across the pond. The other professors could have their little framed memories. Us geeks know how to show appreciation for one another. I now know that I have a game group waiting for me if I ever find myself in Estonia. Huzzah!
I really like this story.
This is awesome. This is what you always hope happens when you strike up a conversation with somebody at a party. Yeah, so what do you like to do? And they're like, oh, I like to hang out with the family and play board games. And you're like, really? Really? Oh, yeah, we play Monopoly and we play Scattergories. Oh.
Deflation.
But then when that doesn't happen, oh, man. I love it when somebody comes up and goes, have you heard of this game called The Settlers of Catan?
Sit right down. I got a PowerPoint presentation. Alrighty. Well, we're feeling so good. Let's have Geoff ruin it for us. Actually, I don't think he's ruining it for us, but he's making me feel weird.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's time for GameTek with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
Last year, I talked about Google's AlphaGo, which was able to defeat one of the best players in the world at one of the deepest games in the world, Go. Well, it happened again, but in a very different type of game. An AI developed by a team at Carnegie Mellon called Libratus recently triumphed over a team of 4 of the best human players at heads-up, no-limit Texas Hold'em poker. After playing 120,000 hands against the 4 poker pros, the AI was up a tremendous amount of money. Play money, but victory nonetheless. Amazingly, just 2 years ago, an 80,000 hand tournament was played against the same players, but the humans won handily that time. A few years back, I talked about research that has been done at the University of Alberta on Limit Texas Hold'em. In that case, the game was, to a certain extent, solved. The computer developed algorithms that led to near-perfect play. No-limit poker is much more complex than limit poker. In limit, as the name implies, there are very specific bets that you can make each round. You can't bet any amount that you want. In 5-10 limit, for example, you can bet or raise $5 in the first 2 rounds and $10 in the next 2 rounds. So the choices are very simple: fold, bet, or raise. Now, in no limit, you can bet any amount up to what you have in front of you. You can bet $5 or $100 or $101. So building up a giant tree of possible moves, which is partly how the Alberta AI worked, is impractical. Maybe you can do some chunking. Maybe you can tell the computer that betting $100 is the same as betting $101, but maybe that's not true. And even if it is, there's still way too many possibilities just to figure them all out. So Libratus was set up in a similar way as AlphaGo. It played against itself 1 trillion times, trying different things, and gradually got better and better and better. It used the same algorithm as AlphaGo called counterfactual regret minimization, a name that I love. It basically means the computer tried to minimize its regret at playing moves by looping backwards and trying different things. But this was only part of the technique used for Libratus. Next, there was a module called an end game solver that basically looked at all the games as they were being played to look for improvements, trying to exploit play by specific opponents. And lastly, there was a module that was run overnight during the tournament that looked for predictable patterns in the way Libratus itself played and tried to eliminate them. Now, the really neat thing about both Libratus and AlphaGo is how different they are from the early AI computers, including Deep Blue, the computer that defeated Garry Kasparov in chess, and how similar they are to each other. Deep Blue had special-purpose hardware that could look at a huge number of chess positions to try to use immense computing power to look ahead in the game more than Kasparov could. But Kasparov undoubtedly was better at evaluating which positions were better for him than Deep Blue was. But the new breed of AIs do not look far ahead while playing. They take the experience they gain from playing millions for AlphaGo or trillions for Libratus games and truly develop a feel for what positions are more advantageous than others that almost certainly exceeds human ability. Now, one result, or issue, depending on how you think about it, is that the creators of these machines don't understand why the computers do what they do. The software has self-learned an incredibly complex model that it uses to decide what to do, and we do not know what it is. Now, this type of learning is used for all kinds of things, including some really important stuff like examining medical scans and developing self-driving cars. But ultimately, we're going to have to take a leap of faith and trust that these computers know what they're doing. And maybe, if I thought about it logically, I would rather rely on a computer that has seen 1 billion MRI scans than a radiologist that's seen a few thousand. But I'd have to think about it for a little bit. In the HBO series Westworld, the robots start to act a little weird at first, then a lot weird later. And they get taken back into the lab, and the researchers try to figure out what's going on. They put the robots into a diagnostic mode, and when they say something or respond in a certain way, the humans ask them, "Why did you do that?" And the robots respond with a techno explanation about their state of mind and how it related to their programming and their script. Now, it is becoming increasingly clear that the AIs we are developing now, the ones that have proven to be the most capable, will not be able to tell us why they do what they do. They'll just say something feels right or it worked before, which sounds incredibly human. We often have a hard time expressing why we chose a certain path or strategy in a game. Now, there's also a lesson here that playing a game over and over and over again is the best way to get good at it, but that's another story. My takeaway from the big advances we've seen in AI over the last 2 years is that it's only going to accelerate, and we, as a society, are going to have to figure out how and when to trust them. This is Geoff Engelstein with GameTek.
Is Geoff implying that robots... Is this like the beginning of Battlestar Galactica? I feel like... What? Am I supposed to be afraid here?
I would. I'd be a little afraid.
You know, speaking of robots, I just did my top 10 robot-themed games, and I barely did it. Barely. So that's a theme that we need more of.
More robots in games.
Yeah, really. Okay. Well, anyway,
You're just helping Jeff's agenda here. You're asking for more robots.
Wait, maybe I am a robot.
Maybe.
Mr.
Vassal.
Tom Vassal. Will there be a Dice Tower theme park?
If you were a die, what sort of die would you be?
Will there be a Vicious Fishes movie? And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Chris asks, with the amount of reviews you've now done, do you put the bar too high when you review? A game can still be fun even though it doesn't review well if played in the right context or atmosphere, which then colors the review of that playing group. Does your taste of what gameplay types you like bias your reviews, or are you not aware of that happening? I can tell when a style of gameplay really isn't liked by the reviewer, but this makes for good viewing in the top 10s.
Well, there's no way not to let your bias in what kind of games you like affect you. It's impossible. I don't even try, but you know what? That makes it that much better when you go into a game going, I don't like deduction games. And then you're like, but this one was fun. Then people take note.
Right, it's true.
And the opposite, too. If you're like, I love deduction games and this is one of the best. Again, people take note.
Right.
I think biases are very useful, and I think it's better for the reviewer to be very upfront about this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, it can certainly help you describe the mechanics. Like if there's a particular thing I don't like about certain games, and this game really hammers that home, then I can say that this is one of the things I hate about games. And this one, it does it very well, but it drove me nuts. And that's a much more interesting review than good, bad.
Now, the other part of his thing, he says, do we set the bar too high? Possibly. There's always going to be that creep of... Well, I've played 34 other games that are like this, so therefore this one needs to show me something better. However, Chris mentions here about, if the game could be fun, but you might not have played it in the right context or atmosphere. That always happens, but a good reviewer needs to be able to go above that and be able to tell that. And every time I negatively review a game, there's always someone who says, with the right group of people. Well, no kidding. With the right group of people, any game would be fun. You're going to find a group of people who like that game. I hope it works well then.
Right.
There's no game that's, with the right group of people, this game still wasn't any good. That's not, you can't even say that sentence. So that's one thing. And also, the other one I hate is like, well, it would make a good drinking game. No, that just means it's a bad game.
Yeah, drinking can make anything different.
Right. You're like, well, when I lose half my senses, suddenly this game's good. How is that a positive?
That's not a good thing.
All right. But yeah, no, I mean, I think reviewers have to like constantly be evaluating themselves in that regard. But I don't worry about it that much. William says, which game have you gotten or are you getting all the things for? All the expansions, promos, special box insert, gone shopping on Etsy for additional items. He says, I plead guilty to King of Tokyo for myself. Oh, that's sad, William, because I know for a fact in a week and a half or 2 weeks, well, actually a week and a half from this episode, maybe even shorter, the Cthulhu Monster Pack for King of Tokyo will be out.
Oh, no.
You gotta buy it. You have to.
Then he will need a bigger box.
What about you, Sir Eric? What do you have everything for?
I think probably Firefly comes close. I've got all the expansions. I've got the special dice for each player. I've got the big map. Yeah, I've got I'm still putting the finishing touches on the crate. Yeah, I got a lot for that game. And Pandemic probably comes close as well. We've got a lot of tricked out components for our copy of Pandemic. So the aftermarket meeples, Meeple Source meeples, and virus tokens, stuff like that. So those two games are probably in that category for me.
Oh, man.
Oh, man?
Now I'm worried here, I think. Because I think I might have just decided to get rid of Pandemic. Right? Now, I mean, don't like screech in horror. I have to make these tough calls that you're not willing to do.
Right.
And everyone I know has Pandemic, so there's no reason for me to keep my Pandemic.
Okay.
But I just remember I had those really cool custom FIMO characters in it.
Oh, no.
Did I get rid of it or not? I can't see it on the shelf, Eric. Okay, well, maybe I still have it. All right. Anyhow, for me, it is definitely HeroScape. I have everything for HeroScape.
Wow.
And I even have, like, above and beyond that. Every once in a while, I'll buy some more custom figures for it. That's how much I like it. I'm pretty close on Descent. I think I have almost everything for Descent. I'm not sure. They released a lot of stuff, so I might have missed something. And I would like to be that way with Arcadia Quest. I was just talking the other day to the guys. I was saying, Arcadia Quest, you only use 3 people on your team. And so let's say you have 30 heroes. That's a lot of combination. And yet there's like 30 more heroes. I'm like, I want them all. But you'll never play with all these heroes. I don't care. But for most things, I don't have that kind of, I must have everything for the game. It's just not that big of a deal. Sure, I like to upgrade games and make them look really cool, but having everything for a game is a bit overrated. Like, for example, HeroScape. I have everything for it. Everything. Do I use everything? No. Are there characters I have that I may never use? Yes. Should I get rid of them? I don't know. You're not a good influence here, Eric.
I haven't thrown away any of my HeroScape either.
All right. Well, what do you got?
About 4 months ago, James joined a club at his school called Deception Board Game Club. I was interested in playing games like Werewolf, Liar's Dice, or Coup. I was a little upset to learn that the sole reason for the creation of the club was to play one game, the Resistance Avalon. However, after playing Avalon a few times, I understood the appeal and am currently still loving every Avalon session I go to. We've played so much that we've created our own meta for the game, and even though I've played it around 100 times, I still want to play a lot more. It makes me wonder, what games could you play 100 times and not get sick of? Are there any games you have played this much? I actually went back and... Oh, first of all?
I found Pandemic. Okay, I know everyone was worried. All right, let's go back.
Oh, it's going to cut that out. Okay. So I went back and looked at the stats, and as far as physical games go, the game I've played the most, no surprise, is Merchant of Venus. I've played that 52 times since I started logging plays in like mid-2003. Pandemic is next up with 32, Mice and Mystics 29, Fearsome Floors 27, Robo Rally 27.
Wow, Fearsome Floors, that's a lot.
Yeah, I played that a lot, I guess. Also, if you go into the app sphere, where it's a lot easier to knock off games really quickly, that's where my number one would be, and that's the Penny Arcade deck builder with 222 games of that. Still going strong. I've got a couple of folks that I'm playing with, and every time we finish a game, we just restart another one, and it's a pastime. So I'm not sick of that one yet, although I'm getting close. There isn't a whole lot of replayability. I guess there's 200 games worth of replayability there. But maybe I'll need to find another one soon. Still,
I don't know if I have any. I'm not going to count apps. That's too difficult.
Right.
I had the Puerto Rico computer game for a while. I played that a lot. I don't keep track of the number of gameplays, so there are some games I've played 733,000 times, and you can't say otherwise.
No, I can't.
No, but I don't know how many games I've played 100 times. Mm-hmm. I know that I've played No Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I know that I've played Spyfall, probably because each game of Spyfall is 8 minutes.
That's true. I don't think I've logged. I guess I have logged. We do a session of Spyfall and be like, how many times we play that? Let's say 8. And I just log all those on Board Game Geek.
Well, if that's true, then how come Spyfall didn't make your list?
Yeah, it didn't make it.
I got Cosmic Encounter. I don't know how many times I played. I guess I could sit down and look at the aliens and say, how many times have I seen this alien in a game? Because you might laugh, but I would probably remember how many times I played with each alien.
Wow.
I could then take the numbers of the aliens that I played with, divide by an average of 5, because I play between 4 and 6 players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that wouldn't work very well. But
yeah.
I played it a lot, and I'm not even remotely sick of it. But I can see that whole play the same thing over and over. When we were kids, we played Uno over and over and over again. I was so sick of it. When I first met my wife, they played Rook all the time. And I was like, how could you guys not be sick of this? I played chess a ton as a kid, trying to get better at it. After a while, I'm like, I'm just tired of the same game all the time. Although I think it's hilarious that this board game club was called the Deception Board Game Club, and it was just Resistance.
Just one game.
They fooled him. It was a meta joke. Although I would have brought in Deception, Murder in Hong Kong and been like, guys, come on now.
Yeah, exactly. Why aren't we playing this game?
Required. So, anyway, that's interesting. Tell us in the forums, folks, what's the game you played the most? I'm always intrigued in that. All right, it's time to go back in time 20 years. Here we go.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10.
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
Alrighty, 20 years ago. Boy, that's so weird for me. And 20 years ago, I was in college. What were you doing?
I was also in college.
Eric was in college making weird YouTube videos, which you can still find.
A few of them, not all of them.
Oh, there's like better ones?
They're out there. Oh, we had, at the time, we thought many of these sketches were brilliant.
I'm not mocking them. I mean, we all have that thing. I just think it's funny that your personality came through even in these videos. And you had made one about Phantom Menace, which was, the hot stuff. What year was that? Was that
1999?
99. So that's when you made those videos.
Yeah.
Well, anywho, we're going back in time 20 years because I think it's a good time to go back and look at these. And we'll do this each year, go back 20 years. And that's interesting. I am sad to tell you, though, that while 1995 was 1994, 1995 were brilliant years and changed the hobby forever. 1997 is kind of a dud. I was stretching to get 10 games. Eric was definitely stretching since considering one of the games he put on his list.
No, there's a reason for that. I know which one you're complaining about.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying you're stretching. Now, you can't tell me you had many more games after these 10. No way.
There weren't many, no. I mean, it's certainly, many of these years I'm filling up a whole piece of paper as I'm researching the list. And this was, I very quickly, actually when you search on Board Game Geek for a year, it auto-sorts by rating. So many of the most popular games show up first. And I, went through the first page of results and wrote down a whole bunch of things, went through the second page of results and wrote down a couple more games, and then went to the third one, haven't played any of those. Fourth page, haven't played any of those. Fifth page, haven't played any of those, and I think I stopped after that.
Yeah, I'm looking now. We have We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 crossovers. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so, all right, we'll get into it. Oh, first, my number 11 will appear higher on Eric's list because he plays it more than I do.
Okay.
Number 10.
Let's start things off with the Rose King, Rosenkönig. This is the Cosmos 2-player game. It can be a 4-player game, I guess, if you can play in partners. And you're trying to move a single king piece around a big grid and place your stones on the board. Every time you move the guy, you put your stone down. And you're trying to get large clusters of your color onto the board. You do this with movement cards, but the key is that you can see what everybody's movement cards are. So you can look around. If I move this here, they're going to have an opportunity to steal one of my very important pieces. You can do that 4 times throughout the course of the game. But if I move it over here, they don't have a move, and maybe I get extra moves because they can't do anything for a while. It is one of those games that you stare at a lot, and it certainly is not a raucous game by any stretch of the imagination. But I enjoy the chess-like puzzle of Rosenkönig. It was my number 9 when we did this list 5 years ago. It's my number 10 now, pretty much the same place. The Rose King, Rosenkönig, number 10.
It's a fine game.
Yeah.
The recent reprint kind of fizzled. It's not like there was a lot of people who want to play this game, but it's fine. It's fine. My number 10 is kind of a cheat because I never heard of this game until like last year when Yellow reprinted it, and that's Niet, which is a trick-taking game, which as you start the game, you are kind of all like going through kind of like a bidding type thing to determine what trick is going to be trump, or if there even is a trump, and how many points things are worth, etc., etc. I thought it was a very interesting, unique version of a trick-taking game. I like trick-taking games where things will change from hand to hand. So, pretty fun. Niet.
Number 9.
My number 9 is what Tom was complaining about earlier, and I guess your number 11, Flux.
No, it's not my number 11.
Oh. Never mind. Flux.
No, look, I'm actually excited about Flux currently.
Okay.
Because Math Flux is coming out soon.
Math Flux is coming. And the fact that this is still being worked on and variants are still coming out 20 years later, I think speaks to its popularity and lasting power. People like to rag on Flux a lot, but it is an interesting system with the constantly changing rules and trying to control a system that you can't totally control. And it's a game I played the heck out of when I was first getting into hobby gaming. So I have to give props to Flux, my number 9.
Well, I was going to mention it anyway. There's a few games that this year was going on, and Flux was certainly one of those. And yes, even I'm not really ragging on Eric for liking it. I'm just saying I don't think the year was that great if he picks this as one of his 10 favorite games. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, people who play Flux are bad. No, Flux has obviously done very well. 20 years.
Yeah.
Especially concerning the other games that came out this year, okay? 1997 was where we were at the glut of the collectible card game genre.
Oh, yes.
There was the Dune CCG, and all kinds of weird collectible card games came out, and they all bombed. Many of them bombed.
Yes.
There was one exception to that rule. Warhammer 40K, their epic version where the mini ones came out, unfortunately that bombed, but I always thought that was a good idea. Like, you could play like a huge battle of Warhammer. TI1. Of course, they didn't call it 1. It was just called Twilight Imperium.
Right.
Fantasy Flight, 1997. They were actually around before 97, but this was the year that people noticed them. So anyway, back to the list. My number 9 is higher on Eric's list, and we have to go in a specific order.
Number 8.
My number 8 is going to show up on Tom's list in just a bit, so I'll throw some more coal on the fire and wait for him at this island.
Boringly, my number 8 is also higher on Eric's list, but we're going to get to this really quickly, so I'm not even making a pun.
Number 7.
And here we are. Lowenhertz is Tom's number 8, my number 7. Lowenhertz is a game about acquiring land and surrounding it with walls, expanding that land, pushing against your opponents. At first, you're like, this is easy. I can just make a nice wall here. But then it gets really crowded really fast. And you do this through action cards. There are 3 options in any version, any round of the game, and one might be straight up gold, another might be putting some walls down, and another is adding a knight to your castle. And so I choose, I'm going to put a knight, and then the next person around the table says, I'm going to take the walls, and the next person says, I'm going to take the walls as well. And then the last person says, I'm not fighting, I'm going to take the money. But then the people that chose the same thing have to battle it out. Like, I'll give you 4 gold for the walls. And they have to come to a deal or else they don't get anything. It's very nasty. But an interesting system. I like it. My number 7, Lowenherz. It was my number 4 before. I haven't played it at all, probably since then, when I did this list before. So that's why it slipped a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you why it slipped. Well, it's not slipped, but I like Lowenherz a lot. But the reason it's not higher on my list is because Domain came out and basically replaced it. It's essentially, it's not the same game, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's like Lowenherz 2.0, and I feel like it does everything Lowenherz does better. But Lowenherz is still a good game. I like the system, although it doesn't. The looks of Lowenherz have not aged well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Domain is a little bit more polished as far as its graphics. I didn't like what Domain did, streamlining a little bit. I think I liked the rougher edges of Lowenherz.
That's weird to me because Lowenherz is a meaner game.
Yeah. Maybe I felt it was a stronger challenge. I don't know.
Never
Plus, I own it, and I didn't want to
surprise
get rid
me.
of it.
Summerer. All right. My number 7 is Turn the Tide, which is a trick-taking game.
Mm-hmm.
I played this one later, so this must have come out in Germany, maybe? But Turn the Tide, you're trying to make the tide go up and down as you win different tricks. Just an interesting idea. This is what the second trick-taking game on my list? It's also the last. But definitely one that you want to check out, Turn the Tide.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. I think I played this a few years later as well. It's a good one.
Number 6.
My number 6 is going to show up on Tom's list, so I'll move into another square and leave something behind.
Huh. I've had a thought here. But anyway, my number 6 was Eric's number 8, and this is the slowest racing game in existence. Mississippi Queen. It's really true. You're racing steamboats down a river, and they move pretty slowly, but still too fast sometimes when you're trying to make them turn.
Yeah.
And the river is random. Each time you get to a new section of river, you roll a die to see which direction the river will take, and a random piece comes out, and you're like, oh, no, I was kind of going the wrong direction there. Time to turn. And there's really no luck. That's the only luck in the game. How you move your riverboat, there's no luck to. And you have to increase your speed and decrease your speed, and sometimes use some precious coal to get your speed up to the right spot. And also stop a few times along the way to grab some bells who you are taking to the ball. I'm not really sure why you're stopping for them.
Sure.
But it is a very intriguing one. It won the Spiel des Jahres, which is a very odd thing to do. It shows kind of what a weak year it was, because this game would not normally even have a chance at that.
Probably not.
But it's still a pretty neat game. I've had some fond memories of Mississippi Queen.
Yeah, I mean, the pieces are really cool. The riverboats with the 2 dials on them, with the speed and the coal that's left on your ship. And the last time, I think it was the last time I played this game, I got totally destroyed by that random draw at the end. I had managed to pull ahead. I was going to win the race. And we pulled the last map tile, and it made a sharp turn, and I was not in a position to turn. I slammed into a waterfall and got stuck and had used all of my coal to pull ahead. And so I just got stuck, I literally could not move, because you needed to spend 2 movement to get out, and I didn't have any coal, and so everybody just flew past me, and I had to forfeit.
Were you sad?
I was
you mad?
I was a little mad.
Table?
But I waved as they went by.
Gracefully.
Number 5.
Number 5 for me was my number 3 last time. This Metro, the route building game with the subway cars. Really fun. I'd still like to bring this out with new gamers. I haven't done this with the kids yet. Although I worry that one kid would dead end the other one a whole bunch, and then things would get nasty. Because it can. Part of the goal is, do you extend your train lines, or do you dead end somebody else so they score very little? But still, fun tile laying game. I enjoy it. Metro, my number 5.
This is one of those games that I think is fine, but has definitely been replaced by other games. I think Suro kind of killed Metro.
Suro and Indigo also is one I like.
Right. By the way, if you're sitting around going, I wonder if I can make a game where I can have tiles connecting different things to different sides of the boards, been done, just so you know. My number 5 is higher on Eric's list. We had an internal conflict, and he comes out ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Boo.
Number 4.
My number 4 was my number 8 before, and that's Bonanza. This is the Uwe Rosenberg bean game. And Tom alluded to the fact that you can't change the order of the beans in your hand, which is tricky and hard to teach to new players right away. They always want to shuffle and sort. But I think the reason why this had slipped a little bit, in my estimation, is I was making some bad investments for a while playing this, and I guess I've let it go for a little bit of time, come back to it, played a few more rounds in recent years, and have enjoyed it more. My family still enjoys bringing this out. They asked to play Bonanza. And recently, while I was sorting through games, I found like a German paper version of this that I got. I don't even know where I got it. Maybe in a Spielbox magazine or something. And it's like you punch the pieces of paper out and it makes a Bonanza deck. It comes in just like a folded piece of paper. It's weird. Anyway, Bonanza, my number 4.
I really do like this game. I think it's fading for me over the years because, it's played so many times. I think they're coming out with a 20th anniversary edition for it.
Why not?
And, well, no, they are. And they were like, and it's exciting. There will be a new bean. Like, that's not that exciting. They've had a lot of expansions and spin-offs with new beans over the years anyway.
Right. It's like replacing one of the Monopoly movers.
Alas, a Monopoly piece has bit the dust.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho. Bonanza, a lot of fun. My number 4 is Caesar and Cleopatra. Now, this is a very intriguing back-and-forth game. This was in the Cosmos 2-player line of card games. This one has not been reprinted, probably because they need to change some of the terminology. You're trying to control different senators and different people by playing different cards to them. And every time you reshuffle cards, it's called an orgy, which is really kind of awkward to explain to some people playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like the game it's really just a word, right? But still, the gameplay itself is really entertaining. It's one of my favorite in the 2-player lineup from Cosmos. So that is Caesar and Cleopatra.
Number 3.
Number 3 for me is the Pokemon.
This is my number 11.
Is the Pokemon trading card game. Everything I said about Flux sort of applies here as well. This game is still going strong, and especially since my kids are now into it, and just regularly my son will challenge me to a Pokemon duel, and we'll break out the decks and give it a whirl. I think we probably have enough cards at this point. No, I'm lying. We probably need more cards at some point. It has the variation of all of the different characters, the fact that there's an expanded universe outside of the game, so you've got the TV shows and the video games, and there's just a lot to explore in addition to playing. You've got the deck building and the all of the external media. Pokemon Go doesn't hurt either. It's a blast to try and combine all of these characters into some synergistic deck that works for you, and trial and error, and the fact I can play with my kids is great. It's still going strong. The Pokemon trading card game, number 3.
Yeah. They're apparently there's a new set, Sun and Moon.
Yeah, that's brand new.
Yeah, they're sending me some to do unboxings and look through them.
Really? That's nice.
Gotta do more videos, Eric. Do you want me to send them to you?
When you're done, if you don't want them.
Well, you know what? I'm trying to get my kids into this because they love Pokemon Go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, hey, why not use this as a step to it? And when Pokemon came out, I hated it. Because this was in the era I was playing every CCG that came out. I was like, oh, Aliens vs. Predators CCG? Let's try it. Oh, Babylon 5 CCG? Come on. And then Pokemon, I don't even know what this is. I'll try it. What? You only have one Pokemon at a time? Dumb. Next.
Yeah.
And it really drove me crazy when I first played it, that it just felt like whoever got their Pokemon upgraded first won. And I think they've actually honed some of the rules over time.
Maybe.
Slightly, but I played it recently and went, oh, okay, I see. Now, it still has a lot of the problems of CCGs. There still is power creep in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And, if you're playing on a competitive level, it's a really weird scene for me. I've seen these Pokemon tournaments where, like, oh, look at all those kids, and why is that 50-year-old guy there? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just odd to me.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, but yeah, no, cool. I'm not even giving Eric garbage over this.
Good.
Because in Pokemon, you evolve from one to the next. And my game is about evolution also. It was Eric's number 6, Primordial Soup. Although back in these days it was called Ursoup.
Ursoup.
Because this is one of those games that they didn't even have an English version of. It was by Frank and Doris, and the English was on the other side of the cards. You're right. So there was an English version of the game inside the box. But this is a game in which you were bacteria, going around and fighting other bacteria. And, as we all love to do, poop out cubes and then eat the cubes of other amoebas, making for no end of pooping jokes. But the game is actually pretty strategic. There's a lot going on. What makes the game fascinating is you can upgrade and you can get these evolutionary traits to make your amoebas better. And they add an expansion which adds even more traits, which you should not play with all at the same time because it really makes the game drag out. It's a little long, and I think you should shorten the game up slightly. But it introduced to me some things I hadn't seen before. Like, for example, the score path. If you needed to move up on a score path 2 spots and someone was there, you went ahead of them. I had never seen that in a game before. That blew my mind. But it's actually in a lot of games now. But anyway, Primordial Soup. But Eric also liked it.
I did very much so, and it's one that was on my sort of grail list for a while. I was hunting it down and finally got it as a gift from a Secret Santa, and was very grateful to receive that one. I think my elder son might enjoy this one. When, of course, the poop jokes that won't hurt it at all, in their mind anyway. But yeah, looking forward to playing that one with them soon.
Number 2.
My number 2 is going to show up somewhere on Tom's list. I don't want to tell you where. Somewhere. So I'll just throw out a card I don't need right now.
My number 2 is a game I'd like to see republished and refurbished, and that's Colossal Arena by Dr. Rainer Knizia. I believe it was published by Fantasy Flight Games. This was one of their best games. They actually republished it later on in a better format. But Colossal Arena, there's a bunch of monsters fighting in an arena, and you are bidding on which ones you think are going to survive. It starts from 8 and goes down to usually 3 monsters. The 3 monsters left, hopefully you have some bids on them. It's done by Simple Card Play. It's a very good 3-player game. Really, really enjoy this one. I think it could use some streamlining and some updating for, a 20-year reboot, but it's still pretty neat. That's Colossal Arena, not on Eric's list.
No, I haven't played this one for a long time until I had played Colosseum. I had these two just confused in my head. I didn't know which one was which. So anytime someone would mention Colossal Arena, I'd be like, is that the one where you're putting on shows? And then someone would mention Colosseum. Is that the one where you're bidding on the monsters? I don't know. So I was confused.
And finally, number 1.
Number 1 was Tom's number 5. He alluded to the internal and external conflicts of Tigris and Euphrates. Of all of the games on the list, I think this is the strongest design. And maybe it's not as popular now. There's lots of other games to play, but it did recently get a new edition from Fantasy Flight, or from, Wind Rider Games. And it's such an interesting one. It's a system that, the rules aren't that complicated, but seeing the interaction, it's really the interaction amongst everything that really makes this thing shine. Because you'll set something in motion, And based on the way that a particular conflict goes, it could trigger all sorts of stuff. You may put a tile down thinking that you're going to cause this war. This is what I need. These are the cubes I need to make things work for me. But, oh, wait, that makes you guys fight, too. Oh, and that makes you fight with me. And now, and things can cascade in ways you did not expect. And it's all just because of this system. Just really strong design. Interesting game that I'm not good at, but I always enjoy the struggle of Tigris and Euphrates. My number 1.
Yeah, this is a really powerful game. It's by far, I said that this year that there was, it just was a dearth of really good games. But I think there was some standout games. Obviously, Bonanza and my number 1, and then Tigris and Euphrates, I think would be the 3 games that we look back and say, these are the games that made waves. Well, I guess Pokemon too, right?
Yeah.
And Flux, because those are games that people are still talking about. Tigris and Euphrates, though, has, fallen off the radar in the last 5 years. I never hear anyone talk about it, even though it was reprinted.
Yeah, I don't think that reprint took off as well as some were hoping.
It was reprinted by Wind Rider Games, who is now Z-Man Games. Wind Rider lasted for 3 games. But hey, I think it's neat. I think it plays best with 2. I think it's a really, really, really great strategy game that every once in a while you want to throw everything across the room. Because you have 4 red tiles and somehow that jerk has 5.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yep.
All right, my number 1 is For Sale. Come on, this was an easy pick for me. For Sale is such a great game. It's a 2 to 6 players auction game that's 15 to 20 minutes, has 2 distinct halves. Both halves are great. I feel like I say the same things every time we talk about this. It shows up in so many lists.
Mm-hmm.
It is still in print. There's even a pocket version of it available now.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like almost a tuck box type thing, which is crazy because I don't want to stick my coins in a tuck box. So, but it's fun. I've had great success teaching it. I see it was Eric's number 2, my number 1. That should just automatically seal the deal for you guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's strong, and I did struggle with whether the ease of For Sale should beat the strength of Tigris and Euphrates, and Tigris won out, but For Sale was very close. More? I play For Sale far more than that. Yeah, it's simply because you can bring out For Sale in almost any situation. It's an excellent filler. It's an excellent introductory game. Tigris is far more robust, but For Sale it's a terrific game to introduce to just about anybody.
All right. Let's see what our contributors think.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Zielinski, and best game of 1997, without a doubt, and it better be Eric's number 1, Pokemon, the trading card game. Celebrating its 20th year this year, and there is no other game that was produced in 1997 that fills game shops across the world on Saturdays or any other day during the week, full of gamers playing the games, has its own world championship, etc. It is an international phenomenon and easily the best game of 1997. And that's Pokemon.
Hello, Ignacy Jack Portal Games.
And Stephen Bonico, Stronghold Games, and we are Board Games Insider.
And the best game of 1997 for me is Bonanza, the old classic from Uwe Rosenberg before he created Agricola. Amazing game with a lot of negotiations and talkings, and I just love the game.
You know, I'm going to go with a really tiny game that I think really started up the whole dexterity movement in games, which has become bigger and in time. Jungle Speed. This was a huge game at conventions here. I mean, just that filler game. Everyone would just carry around Jungle Speed, where you're trying to grab the totem in the center of the table when cards were flipped that match other people. Speed, dexterity game, fun as all heck. Jungle Speed.
Absolutely. Great choice.
Hi, Sean from the Game Pit here. When I was looking through the games from 1997, one game stood out like a beacon of brilliance, and that is Rainier Knizia's masterpiece, which is Tigris and Euphrates. It pulls off the trick of being deep and meaningful and strategic, but at the same time easy to learn with easy mechanisms. The scoring is brilliant, and a little pinch of luck just rounds it off nicely for me, and that's my favourite game of 1997, Tigris and Euphrates.
This is Professor Scott Rogers of Biography of a Board Game. And what game from 1997 do I think is the best? Well, looking over the list on Board Game Geek, to be honest, I don't think 1997 was that great a year. Not a lot of games I own, not very many that I've played. My top pick would probably be Bonanza. This is the Uwe Rosenberg card game about collecting sets of beans where you can't change the order of the cards. It's an interesting game, but just a light filler. But I do respect that it's been around for so long, and a lot of people like it, so that's my super exciting pick from 1997, Bonanza.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, talking about my favorite game of 1997. It's gotta be For Sale by Stefan Dora. A masterpiece of simple design. Players take turns trying to buy and sell property for profit. It's got humorous artwork. It's a great game to close out the night. That's why my favorite is For Sale.
This is Brian from Cult of the Old, and I'm going to go with Primordial Soup. I'll grant you that Primordial Soup and the more modern Evolution have some similarities, but I would argue you can safely own both and not feel like you're too redundant. Primordial Soup has a neat board element with stuff moving all around. It's visually better, even though Evolution is quicker to explain, plays faster. The Soup is fun for a lot of reasons. The poop jokes for 13-year-olds still hold, and even though it's a bit too long, it's still quite fun.
Hi, Luke from the Broken Meeple, and 1997 is going a long way out of my typical experience, but one clear winner stands out, and that is Tigris and Euphrates. You wouldn't even think I would like a game like this. Super dry, almost abstract. Well, I like abstract strategy games, and this one is my clear winner for this year. Plenty of decisions to make, the whole concept of having internal revolts and external wars, where the board state can change rapidly. Such a cool game that still remains in my collection to this day. Tigris and Euphrates.
Sorry, Mark. I didn't put it as number one. I hope you'll forgive me.
I don't even know what he's talking about. Eric has to put this as number one. We don't got to do nothing, Mark. We're our own people.
Yeah. Peer pressure.
Anyhow. I think it's weird that nobody picked For Sale, though. Oh, no, BJ did. BJ did.
Yeah, BJ.
Right. Okay, People's Choice. Number 10, Jungle Speed. I thought about this. This was pretty close. This was probably my number 12.
Okay.
Number 9, Primordial Soup. Number 8, Corridor. This is actually a pretty clever abstract strategy game. I think that there's like many, many better ones, but in 97, this was a good one. 7, Pokemon. 6, Gipf, which I've never actually played from the whole series. I think it is I think it's the only one I haven't played at this point.
Okay.
Number 5, Flux.
All right.
Number 4, Colossal Arena. Number 3, Tigris and Euphrates. Number 2, Bonanza. And number 1, For Sale.
All right.
And again, like I said, at For Sale, Bonanza, Tigris, Euphrates, I think it's just, that was it for the year pretty much.
Sure.
Well, the good thing is that we don't have these problems anymore, like struggling to find games. Now when we look for, like in 2017, I could almost make a top 10 from the games that have been released thus far.
Well,
there's that many good games that come out every year now.
Yeah.
Like when we do our end of the year stuff, it's not hard to pick the games, right?
Right. No.
Oh, if it is hard, it's because there's so many good ones.
Right. It's not hard to come up with 10 that deserve to be on the list, for sure.
Right. But 97 was pushing it. 97's pushing it. Maybe next year we'll look at 98. I will say, though, that there was only a few years of bad, and then after that, amazement. Whew. What an episode. 4 more left. Count them down. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 495, was recorded on February 9th, 2017. Coming up next week, at what level of component quality will you refuse to play a game? Find out what our contributors have to say. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Referee for our hog tying competition provided by Sheriff of Nottingham. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, email us at Dicetower@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including the Out of Game podcast, 20 Minutes of Filler, the Snakes Cast, the D6 Generation, the Family Gamers, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, Our Turn, and Board Game Breakfast at DicetowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming.
Okay, I guess I'll keep Pandemic, since I didn't get rid of it.
Well, I think it's fate saying you should.
I thought about it, though. Was that wrong? Should I have not even thought it?
Well, now you've thought it. The thought is there. You'll not be able to unthink it.
Eric, the game's looking at me.
It knows, Tom. It knows.